So good afternoon, everyone. There's we have a topic here. Oh, I'm John Amos, by the way. I'm just the old guy who's been coming to these for 30 years, and I had an idea about a problem that I think is going to get worse and worse, and it's the shipment of project cargo by air. More often than not, it's on an emergency basis, and we have a little problem with airlines that are available. So we have an important panel here to talk about it for the next 45 minutes. And the speakers were organized by our moderator, Faisal Boomerkoof, and who is many, many years with Volga Dnepr panel, PINA, and really knows the business. So instead of listening to me, I ask Faisal to come up and take over. And he's going to help me down the stairs because I hurt my hamstring.
Just a second, please. You got him? Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being present. It's really great to see you all here. Very excited about this because it's a bit of an unusual topic for a Breakbulk conference. We have an excellent panel, and I just want to make sure to what John said, we are not the problem, okay? So on my left, we have Axel, who is the vertical head for DB Schenker Americas, spearheading the government and maritime solutions. We have Reza from Airbus, who is actively working on Beluga introduction into the civil cargo market. Then we have Mr. Robert Reed, procurement, global procurement and supply chain for Nabors Drilling. And then last but not least, and whom you may know, Amnon from Antonov Design Bureau. The topic is geared towards not necessarily talking about how much availability is there, but what are we looking at between aircraft operators, aircraft designers and manufacturers, and then service providers like DB Schenker. What's today's challenge? What are we looking at for tomorrow? What are the options? What are the products? Without further ado, I would say we kick off with Axel, DB Schenker. Thanks for welcoming him. And Axel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good to have everyone here. Nice, good crowd at a very busy Breakbulk this year. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it since we have lots of speakers and lots of information to go through. So to set the stage a little bit, I'm going to present where we are with current market conditions, where we see it as availability of aircraft, current challenges, and a forward future where we are looking to see what needs to be done in order to progress and move forward. So during the past few years, there's been quite a bit of change within the market that everyone has experienced overall, particularly with the changes with freighter capacity, freighter operators, geopolitical situations as they are currently around the world, entrance of older aircraft back into the system that were previously considered not necessarily obsolete, but not necessarily up to standards as far as operation is concerned. So if we take a look at the graph that we're showing right now, if we take a look at where we are for freighters since basically the beginning of January 2022, airline freighter availability has jumped up to 21% above as far as where we were in 2019. Which is significant, right? A lot of this has gone into a lot of 747s that have been out for delivery, a lot of freighter conversions that I'll get into here in a little bit. But one of the main impacts here is the passenger belly capacity that has had a struggle coming back onto the market, mostly because of the pandemic situation that has happened. A lot of passenger travel has focused mainly more within the region and within smaller markets. So nobody's flying internationally, hence that belly capacity that used to be relieving 747s is now not there anymore. So it's putting a big constraint on the market. And again, it's pushing more cargo towards your larger wide body operators that are in there. Now, the integrators so far have run relatively stable within their environments because they have a fixed fleet on a fixed market. And as far as the project cargo is concerned, really not a great influencer when it comes to that particular market. If we take a look over the past 12 months, as far as the industry overview, as far as developments are considered, also on a global level, there is a continued growth on a global level in almost every vertical, moving raw materials to capital equipment, which we're mostly interested in here, special handling, chemicals and machinery parts, and so on and so forth. So the only ones that have gone down is live animals. But that's insignificant as far as what we're talking about here. We're more taking a look at the capital equipment and machinery parts segmentation as far as what we're looking at right now. There has been a little bit of a slow if we take a look at the numbers for the past 3 months, but I think that also has to do with a little bit more what's going on globally with finances and inflation rates and so on and so forth. Again, taking a look at as far as the 5-year forecast, as far as trends, there's green numbers going all across as far as on an international level, from all U.S. to Europe, Asia markets as well. South America is a growing player within the market, so we're not going to see any downtrends necessarily as far as forecasting is concerned. And the reason why this is important is this is what is showing the demand on the current air cargo market as it plays right now on an international level, right? And the impact in the end that it will have as far as availability for project cargo as it relates to that. So if we take a look at availability on the market as well. I took a little bit of a view as far as where we were pre-2020. I took just a brief snapshot on the most commonly used aircraft that we're looking at. So pre-2020, we pretty much had almost every aircraft availability out there as far as to move. We had 747s available. We still had 225. We had a full augmentation of Antonov 124. This was the beginning of the Boeing 737 freighter conversion time frame as well. So as far as the air carrier market was concerned and aircraft availability, it was a good time frame. So post-COVID, again, geopolitical changes, we've seen some unfortunate changes that have not necessarily been positive onto the market, right? So for the last 747 freighter production coming off the production line is actually coming out in the next couple of weeks, and then Boeing is closing that line. And what's the impact from that? You will not have a nose load capacity airplane being built anymore on that aspect, and that has a great impact. If we look at here in Houston, purely as an example for oil and gas, moving pipe, larger pieces of equipment, a 747 is an integral part of in your toolbox to be able to move the cargo that you're looking to move. Again, Antonov 225, unfortunately, we were all quite aware as far as what's happened to that. Great loss as far as the aviation market is concerned. Antonov 124s have decreased as far as geographical operations, also with the Aleutian 76. Still have the L-1011s, the Lockheeds, the L-100s that are flying. And then we also have a greater amount of 737s as far as a little bit more on the local market are concerned. But I still think it's important to take these into account, because if we're talking smaller project moves within a smaller geographical area and a little bit harder to reach places as a feeder routes, it's still a very important component to keep in the back of your mind. For future, lots of questions as far as what's going to be out there as far as what the future is concerned. We're pretty much set the way that I see it today in the aircraft availability that we have as we stand today, right? Airbus, an A380 freighter, I think there's always been that discussion, but I don't think that's really going to be a realistic happening as far as what's going on, taking the 747 market into account. Eventually, the 747 freighters will diminish in time because of utilization. They've been heavily utilized more over the past 2 years than in a quite long time frame. We're seeing more freighter conversions from passenger to freighter for the Airbus products, for the A330 and the A300, which is good. I'll get into that a little bit more as well. From a forwarder's perspective, right, we're taking a look at as far as what the availability would be for a 124 or an Aleutian as well. And then there's with Airbus here, as far as the Beluga is a new entrant, and is very interesting as far as what capacities they are going to offer, particularly in the project and oversized market. So I put down here as far as question marks for former and military aircraft. There's been multiple studies that have been done in the past as far as, do we introduce those aircraft into a civil market? It's a lot more difficult to do that than people think. The aircraft were initially built for military purpose and military spec. They weren't meant for international certifications per se. It would take a lot of capital in order to bring those aircraft into the civil market, which probably in these days won't be recouped too much. Challenges, right? For where we're looking at for the, again, I separate these out between palletized cargo and ramp cargo. The biggest overall right now that we're seeing is cost. It doesn't matter which one of the two aircraft that we're looking at. Cost is a huge driver at this point in time. That's purely because each one of the aircraft has a very limited availability or tight availability that we're looking at per se on those sides. So on the 747s, we already talked about older generations that are operating now will also have to slowly be taken out of the market for the environmental regulations that are coming into play here in the next few years, as well as just overall operational capability and capacity. So as far as aircraft development and planning goes, right, from our side, I deal a lot with the aircraft manufacturing as far as where they are right now. A lot of demand is focused more on e-commerce and general cargo packaging as far as the new aircraft designs which are being done. They want a quick turnaround, just like the aircraft are now. They want to have capacities that go, higher, faster, longer. And as such, right, we have the Boeing 777 freighter that's out on the market now as a replacement. It has the same tonnage per se as a 747 does, but no nose door. And I think that nose door for project cargo is a huge influencer, particularly when it comes to rapid movement. Passenger demand, also, as I had mentioned before, if we take a look at until passenger aircraft start developing and flying more within the regions, we're going to have still a constraint within the freighter markets that we're seeing right now. We discussed the A380 freighter, not really an option. 747 production, there have been discussions with the larger operators if Boeing will consider to continue. That has actually come down that no, they will no longer continue. They are going to be focusing on future aircraft models. So that's unfortunate from that aspect and that side. So what does it mean? From our side, we take a look at as far as the solutions that have been designed by industry as far as the air cargo market and using aircraft have been very aircraft specific. They know they can load it on an AN124. They know they can load it on a B747. Now the question is do we need to re-engineer some of those things for a different product later on? right? Or do we have to take a look at a new aircraft development somehow down the line on how it's going to work? And I'll let my panelists, when they get into the Antonov and to the Beluga, as far as carry on that discussion as far as where they see that's going. Engineering projects might take a little bit longer with lead times because there's going to be a very specific envelope they're going to have to take into consideration, which is a pre-discussion as far as even pre-production is concerned. So as far as the way that we're looking at it on the larger projects, we really need to start the integration and the conversation earlier on rather than when the finished product is already there and put into play. So we know this situation with ocean right now. Overall, the market isn't necessarily all that great on ocean. We have delays. Timing on your standard containerized carriers aren't going there. Breakbulk has always been a challenge on that aspect as well. So where do we go from here? I think it takes a lot more collaboration and discussions as far as what the customer's needs in the future are going to be, and try to really start a 2 to 3 year out conversation and forecasting to see what we can do to make sure that we're really ensuring that we can hit those proper transportation needs and requirements as they come up.
All right.
All right.
So thanks a lot, Axel. You raised quite a few points that we've been discussing before, and we'd like to hear from the audience as well, especially in the production side, project side. So we have Reza here from Airbus, and we're going to hear how and why Airbus is introducing basically an internal tool for moving oversized, overdimensional cargo into the civil market.
Yep. Okay.
Reza,
Yeah.
looking forward.
Thank you, Faisal, and good afternoon, everyone.
They might still be loading it up.
Is it? Okay.
It's rebooting.
All right.
There we go.
So, maybe I should start by giving a brief explanation of why Airbus is today here in the business of oversized cargo. So roughly, it started all 4 years ago, and we asked ourselves a simple question. What are we going to do with our 5 Beluga STs, which are A300 platform, since they were going to be replaced by 6 brand new Beluga XL, which is an A330 aircraft, to transport Airbus aircraft sections between the different sites, Airbus sites in Europe. And knowing the Beluga ST fleet can still fly for another 20 plus years, we thought, okay, let's give them a second life, right? So we collaborated and discussed a lot with freight forwarding companies and brokers all over the world to understand the needs and the challenges the oversized air cargo market was facing. And we quickly understood that there was a need for capacity, right? So this is a niche market within the air cargo world. And there was a need for capacity for both the civilian and the military market to transport oversized cargo for the oil and gas industry, aerospace industry, big machineries, you name it. So we thought, okay, we have a unique aircraft with unique dimensions, right? And so the dimensions you probably know, but it's roughly 6.7 meters high. So here it's around 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
So basically you can think of a 20-foot container, you put it vertically, it fits. We'll never do that, but it fits. So yeah, unique dimensions. And we quickly understood as well that this aircraft could open new options for the market. For cargo, which today, or at least in the past, did not have other option than using the sea freight to be transported by air because it was just so big or needed to be dismantled. We understood that our aircraft could bring a good opportunity for that market as well. So we work closely with freight forwarding companies and brokers to progress on that. Our aircraft is unique, okay, not only by the dimension, but keep in mind that it has been developed and manufactured by Airbus to transport Airbus aircraft sections, right? It does not have a standard cargo floor. Okay, it does not have specific loading means. So these were the two big challenges we faced at that time. So we had to be innovative, we had to be creative to make sure that if we wanted to enter this business of oversized air cargo markets and to respond to the market needs, we had to bring something new to make sure that to offer full charter flights worldwide, we were able to answer the market needs. So two things. One is the cargo floor. That was one of the big challenges because every aircraft section we transport has its own customized jig, right? So we had to work on that, and we had to work on the loading means. So just to give you an idea, regarding the floor, we needed to build something universal, a new cargo floor. So that's how we came up with what we call the MPP, which stands for multi-purpose pallets. So basically it's a pallet which is 4 meters wide, 2 meters long, and we adjust the number of pallets according to the length of the cargo. So now we have an artificial floor on which we can put the cargo, do all the lashing, so everything is secure during the flight. So now that we have the floor, the question is, how do we load and offload the cargo everywhere in the world? So that's a good question. And we came up with two types of loading means. The first one is what we call the outboard platform. So it's a platform that has to be positioned before the aircraft arrives. Okay, so by the end of next year, we are targeting to have 15 to 20 outboard platforms. So when we manufacture, we position them by sea freight at different locations in the world. It takes 1 day to assemble, 1 day to disassemble, so that can be done very quickly. Once disassembled, it's stored in 20-foot containers, so it can easily be trucked before the aircraft arrives. In 2 or 3 days. We can already do 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers. And when the aircraft arrives, we position the platform, we offload the cargo, we need a crane, take it from the platform to the ground. Okay, so that's one type of the loading means. Recently, you might have seen on the news as well that we have one for maybe more the military customers. It's a similar outboard platform, but with a lifting function. Okay, so you might not even need a crane as well. If the cargo has wheels, with the ramp, you don't even need a crane. The second type of loading means, in order to be even more autonomous, more reactive in the mission, and that will be available at the beginning of next year, is what we call the onboard cargo loader, an OBCL. So this platform is flying inside the aircraft with the cargo. Right? It can weigh, transport up to 20 tons of cargo, so around 44,000 pounds, and for up to 12 meters long cargo as well. So that can be good for AOG mission, for urgent missions, so not so heavy payloads, right? But really something extremely voluminous could work, right? And the idea here, again, we have a lifting function, so if the cargo has wheels, we will add a ramp and we don't need a crane. Otherwise, we just have a crane that we usually find quite easily at airports. So this was really the big challenge for us. We're trying to answer the market needs as much as possible. We are learning from our customers, who are the freight forwarding companies and the brokers, trying to provide the solution that will help the oversized air cargo market with new capacity.
Do you anticipate any increase of payload capability? And obviously there's going to be the question, if we compare that to the reach, geographical reach between 747s that we used to have, Antonov/Ilyushins, in places like Africa, so for remote projects. We can keep the answer for after Robert's and Amnon's input, but I think it's a very interesting development, but there's quite a bit of questions around it, and I'm sure that some of our project forwarders here are eager to launch them. Robert, thanks for being part of the panel. Can you explain and show us how Neighbors has dealt with the situation and how Neighbors has adjusted its supply chain to answer these challenges?
Okay, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get this to work.
There you go.
It's loading up. There we go. No, it's one too far.
That's your presentation.
Did it go too far? Go ahead.
A reintroduction. I was hoping to keep the big shot for last, but it seems like we have to give him priority. Amnon, I think everybody here has quite a bit of questions around Antonov Design Bureau and with what's going on. So enlighten us.
All right, well, I guess Axel made my job a little bit easier by giving you a little bit of perspective of what's really out there in the market right now. First of all, I guess I need to thank my colleagues who've traveled from Kiev and from Leipzig for coming. It wasn't an easy trip, but
I'm not.
appreciate you guys being
Can
here.
you speak up a little bit?
A little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
All right. I
Just
don't think
like
anyone's
you're
ever told me to be
supervising-
louder.
It's like you're supervising a loadout.
All right. I guess when I first started with Antonov, my biggest challenge, not with the company, but my biggest challenge was making sure that everybody knew that there was a difference between us and our competitors in the market. A lot of folks didn't know about Antonov and being Ukrainian. My wardrobe changed. I wore blue and yellow all the time, my socks. Unfortunately, in today's world, that's really not so much of a challenge for us anymore. We have a lot bigger challenges than that. First and foremost, Antonov is a state-owned entity. It makes things a little bit difficult sometimes, being a state enterprise, but at the same time, it also gives us stability. To continue and extend the market capacity for heavy and oversized cargo. That's what we're here to do. How easy that will be, I think only time will tell. We have 7 AN-124s. At the time that the war started, luckily we had 5 aircraft that were outside of Ukraine. So those 5 aircraft are currently operating. 2 of them are for NATO or for Salis at any given time. The other 3 are operational for commercial use for any of the folks that are here. But of course, there is the issue of maintenance. And it's an aircraft that requires a significant amount of maintenance, so there's always at least one to the side. Our other 2 aircraft, one sustained significant damage at Gostinel Airport. At some point, she'll fly. I can't tell you when. The other one, she was already in a long-term maintenance, about 1.5 years, and that's also going to take time now because we're going to prioritize other things. That's just the way things are. So essentially what's happened is, as Axel put it, market capacity has come down by what, more than half? And even before the war started, we had COVID, and our aircraft were flying constantly. So it's been a challenge for us to keep our aircraft in the air, to keep our crew, all of our team, to keep everybody going. So Antonov, as a state-owned entity, we're divided into 5 groups. We have our commercial team. A few of the folks are here. Our operations department. When you guys reach out to us, our first priority is then to turn to the operations group, and we lean heavily on them. And then operations in turn will lean on the load planning department. And the cargo that most of the folks here have is usually not easy. I think the biggest challenge that load planning has is that everybody wants to know if it'll fit. Will it fly? Can it go? And oftentimes, you just want to know, can we do this? But in the end, the cost is becoming a factor, and it's going to go by ocean freight. So of the 10 load plans that we do, 2 may actually fly. Our flight crews and our technical crews, they've had a difficult time of all of this. And last, our finance team. When I talk about the difficult time that we've had, obviously we've not been able to maintain our offices and our headquarters in Gostinel Airport. So we've had to transfer everything to Leipzig, Germany. the Ukrainian government allowed 200, let's call them essential workers, to leave the country. And slowly but surely, 200 folks, their families, and everybody made it to Leipzig, and that's where we're operating our aircraft. Challenges. There are certainly a lot of challenges that we're facing. Working remotely, you know, from the very beginning, when the war started, we had people that were working remotely from basements, from bunkers, from subways, wherever they could. But they've made it through. And now, even in Leipzig, it's still not easy to work remote. All of us here have had the ability to work remotely. For some, it's a good thing. For some, it's a bad thing. I would say for us, it's not been great. But the resolve that they've shown has been incredible, and yes, they're doing it. Oh, that's backwards. Can we go backwards?
Yes, it does. So, Amnon, what does that mean with all these challenges? A limited fleet, a tool that's project industry for emergency services and off the beaten track projects. What's the near future in the development? How does ADB sees the sustainability? And
So that is probably our biggest challenge right now.
yeah,
Our biggest challenge is maintaining the fleet. Project cargo is inherently oversized. It's large, it's heavy. And that type of impact on the aircraft means more maintenance. More maintenance means supply chain issues. And everyone here has supply chain issues, and we're going to continue to have supply chain issues as well for everything coming out of Ukraine.
all right. So tell us a bit about the Antonov 225, because that's a burning question for a lot of people, at least on my side. I know there have been quite some rumors on rebuilding based on either the existing second airframe or another one. Is there anything you can share with us?
So there is a second airframe. People here have probably been to Kiev and they've seen it. Yes, there is a second airframe. Fuselage here, wing sets
Yeah.
over here, nose cone over there. It'll take a Herculean effort to rebuild,
Yeah.
not to mention money. Will it? Absolutely. And that comes not from Antonov Airlines, not from Antonov Company, not from Ukrogomprom. It comes from the top that you will rebuild the AN-225. So yes, we will rebuild her. And again, as a state enterprise, there will be challenges. But I think what's going to have to happen and what will happen is eventually that state enterprise will become more of an LLC, which will then become the vehicle for investment, because it's investment that's going to allow to rebuild.
Well, thanks for the explanation and the highlight. I would say let's move over, see, Robert, if we can get your slides on, and hear how Neighbors Drilling has actually handled the situation and what alternative solutions or limitations they have put together.
Is it going to come up, or do I need to press it?
Should
Should come up.
One time.
No, I said no.
One more.
1 minute. Oh, I said wait.
Getting close.
Wait.
Oh,
Not going.
Now I think.
so anyway, can everybody hear me okay? Okay. We'll get it up.
All right.
So, my name's Robert Reed. I'm a director of supply chain with Neighbors. My team includes our global procurement, global logistics, of which I've made two of my guys come here, so no questions from them though. And I have our corporate travel and our vendor services. So, when I was invited to participate, I think you're looking at experts. I'm a user. So we consume what these guys are doing. So it's interesting to hear, a little concerning to hear about the 747 nose loader, because we do have occasion to use that for neighbors for some of our oil equipment. So hopefully I will be retired before that is retired, and then it'll be up to somebody else. So with my presentation, when we get it up, I've broken it out into four segments. One is pre-pandemic, one is post-pandemic, one is how we adjusted our plans and what we see based on inputs from experts like this, our freight forwarders, for the next 18 months. Oh, there we are. So there we go. We covered that. So pre-pandemic, for our project planning, it was fairly stable. We knew our suppliers had inventory. We knew their lead times for the items they didn't have inventory. We knew that ocean shipping was stable. We could count on dates as long as we met cutoffs, that cargo would be where it needed to be. And the same with air. So even coming out of 2015, we did not anticipate what we were going to see post-pandemic. So this was truly an eye-opener for us. And some of the issues that we saw, and just to set this up, so in March of 2020, just domestically, we saw our rig count go March of 2020 until May, decrease 70%. So not only were we stacking rigs, we were also seeing the airlines park their jets. So that was unusual. That hadn't happened before when we had a downturn. It was not across all segments of the economy. This was. The lockdowns really drove something that we didn't anticipate. So when we started putting rigs back up very slowly in June of 2020, we were still using all of our supplies from those stacked rigs. So our suppliers obviously had inventory that they had to deplete. So everybody's on lockdown. So you have the manufacturers that are manufacturing this for our suppliers, and we're using our stuff. They're just depleting, not reordering, because they don't know when it's going to come back. So it was something that just, it really took us by surprise, because the vendors couldn't get raw materials. They had layoffs. People didn't come back. They had shortages of people. I think everybody has seen this. We had stockouts and extended lead times for material that we had never had issues with getting before. So it really was a challenge. Shipping, ocean freight, cost skyrocketed, especially bringing things from China. We saw bookings rolling over multiple times, and that was just out of the U.S. We tried to maintain everything out of the port of Houston and not go to the West Coast, because the challenge, even just getting into the port in one of the West Coast ports, just the chassis to move containers around, it could cause you extensive delays. So the other thing we saw, and Axel, you brought this up, when those airplanes parked on the ramp, because you could go to Houston at Intercontinental and just see them wingtip to wingtip for United. So the capacity that removed from the system for air freight was significant, because everything that used to go underbelly is now competing for the regular cargo carriers, because that capacity is gone. So we saw that, and that's when we saw the air freight. We used to have, and we have it now, but just we had regular air freight, which we need to get it there in a week, and we have urgent air freight, which means we need expedited service. Well, the pricing for urgent is obviously more, but we saw a single price for air freight, and it was the urgent air freight. And there was no quibbling, there's no expediting. It's you show up, and if we can get you on, we'll get you on. And that's what we saw into 2021, 2020, into 2021. And we've seen that curtail some, and we can, as we look at what we did to mitigate those. So our planners, and especially with our subsidiary of CanRig, it was a challenge because everything has a lead time. So all those lead times we had to look at again, not just manufacturing, but now increased our tail, our logistics tail, because of the delays for ocean and air. So it was quite the challenge. So we've done that. We put that out. We were increasing lead times from 2 weeks to 3, 4, 5 months. And now we're even seeing where it's even delayed. We still have issues, raw materials, manufacturing, but at least we understand what the challenge is and can mitigate that by planning earlier. And with our commitments that we have, we can mitigate that and have our customers' material delivered on time. So I think the air freight, I don't know, how many people are consumers like me of this service in here? One? Okay. So I think we've seen a normalization of ocean freight to some degree. We still see a couple of rollovers here and there, but not to the extent we saw in 20 to 2021. So to us, that's a good thing because now we can plan for accurate, stable ocean freight going in the future. So as I talked about, discussions with experts like this, with our freight forwarders, and our vendors that supply our materials, we're confident that we're going to see a shrinking lead time for our materials that we order. And we see ocean freight, as I said before, stabilizing, where if we book something, we're confident it's actually going to go. A year ago, we couldn't say that. So our outsized and heavy air freight is pretty much limited to the nose loader. We've used that several times at Neighbors, but we have yet to have something big enough to go on in Antonov. So sorry about that.
All good.
But anyway, I think it's a challenge. I've really some of the insights that you guys have presented have been good for me as a user of these services and understanding where we're going to be and what we're going. And the nose loader thing really, do you actually have a date when they're going to phase that out? I mean, these airframes last for 30 years.
The average usable lifespan on a 747 airframe, you're usually looking 20-25 years. So
25
it
years.
will, with the last but again, the clock starts with that last
Right.
delivery of that airplane. There are still 747-200 classics that are still operating that are out there
Yeah.
in more, let's say, I don't say non-regulated, but in areas probably within Africa
Yeah.
or in some parts of Asia. Those will slowly be phased out. ICAO will have, in the next few years, another step up in regard to environmental requirements for both noise and pollution. Which again will also possibly take into account with additional aircraft being taken,
Right.
which were thrown in as far as during the pandemic in order to support, maybe removed back out again from the market availability.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you. And
Thank you, Robert. Very interesting discussion, I think. And before I hand it over to the floor, what is the input from you, Reza, hearing this inputs, lifespan of the 747 nose loaders? Where do you see where the Airbus timeline-wise could catch up and feed the needs, like what Robert is explaining for Neighbors?
Well, as I was saying, we have, today more than 20 years vision for the Beluga. It's a nose loader, of course.
Yeah.
We started from an aircraft which originally was not meant for what we're going to do, or what we have started to do already. And the idea is to try to keep on learning. We keep on learning every day on every missions we do. And I think, keeping on collaborating with our customers or freight forwarding companies and brokers will be extremely important. You had a question before, which was, do we expect to increase the weight or the maximum payload capabilities? Yes, we hear the needs. Today we are limited at 40 tons. So again, for us, we are complementing the market with our solution. We are not competing against the Antonov. The Antonov is an amazing aircraft, transporting very heavy. The Beluga is a brilliant aircraft for very voluminous. So I think it's great for the market to have both aircraft, and we really hope the Antonov will keep on flying for many years. So yeah, no, keep on learning, trying to. If tomorrow we have indeed a need to build more aircraft, we might be able to build more Beluga XL. Of course, might take this opportunity maybe to increase the maximum payload capabilities. We'll never reach 150 tons for sure, but we'll keep on learning, listening to the customer and market's needs, and see how we can best fit those needs with our solution.
Thank you. Do we still have time for questions, or as I see here the timer at 0? Are there any questions from the crowd? Don't be shy. None. So well, I have a question for the panel. With all these inputs and the crowd that we have here, the situation in the market, how do you see further cooperation from the market in a non-competitive environment to feed the need or get the objective covered in developing new aircraft models, perhaps? Enhancing existing aircraft models? Is it possible to reconvert 747s into nose loading capabilities? Has that ever been discussed? How do we work that towards? So I'd like to start with Axel, because you're really a specialist on the Boeing side, having worked with them quite intensively. Where do you see that going, and what do you think would be needed in cooperation format and input?
Well, anything's possible with the right money and time and investment, right? Yes. If we take a look at the 747, again, if you take the older passenger aircraft, you can convert it into a freighter, but only with the side door. Yeah. In order to do a nose door, it's a structural change. Plus, your cost starts getting very restrictive and prohibitive when it comes to something like that. In my opinion, as far as there needs to be an additional discussion and collaboration to make it known that, you know, a lot of the manufacturers have gone towards e-commerce, right? That's yes. The main thing. That's why these passenger to freighter conversions have happened, in order to support more e-commerce business. Will those same platforms be able to be used to support project cargo? Could very well be, but I think that a lot of the operators, for the most part, will be the ones that will, in collaboration with the customer base and the forwarders, to bring that to the forefront with some of the manufacturers as far as what's the need for the future. Yeah.
Robert, I had an extra question for you, but in your rich and experienced past, you were both a pilot. You've served in Afghanistan. You have worked in the first step back into the civil market in looking on how certain aircraft types could be integrated into the civil market, if I'm not mistaken. What was the experience, and what did you notice back in that day?
First, I think Axel's correct. With any amount of money, you can do anything. Politics always play a part in that. As you know, Boeing and Airbus have had disagreements over the years and been at the world, was it for the World Trade?
Yes.
Is that what it is? WTC?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a challenge. Nobody wants to get off on that and get into that with those discussions, but we have taken, and Axel showed that the C-130 is commercialized. Even the C-141 was commercialized. I think there was opportunity. I think it was a mistake not to commercialize the C-5 or the C-17.
Yeah.
It is expensive. There are ways where certain military standards can be accepted if the FAA signs off on it. But again, That was all during the Air Force tanker
Yes.
debacle,
Yeah.
and they chose not to do it at that time.
Yeah. I just got a sign that we have to unfortunately cut it. The panel is available for any of your questions afterwards, obviously, and I would encourage you to contact them, really. So they have so much knowledge and expertise. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here.